Implementing Cloud Armor rules can be frustrating sometimes because the policies can inadvertently block requests coming to sites. And this usually only happens if the site is legacy in some way. But there are a lot of older sites still out there that benefit from having the Cloud Armor web application firewall. We're going to take a look at how to diagnose issues and correct them. So we have a site that we've set up protected by Cloud Armor, and it has all of the OWASP core rule set, or CRS 3.3 policies protecting it. If we refresh, we still can't connect to the site, and the only message that we get is this 403 forbidden. Now that's not surprising because when the Cloud Armor policies are set up, you get to configure what you want the response code and the message to be. And 403 is often the choice picked, and in fact it's the default choice. When we made the request was logged as long as the logs are turned on in the Google Cloud Load Balancer. So first and foremost, make sure you have logging enabled in your load balancer. In order to get to the logs, one of the easiest ways is to search for Cloud Armor and then pick Cloud Armor policies. And this will take you over to the policy itself. And when you pull up the policy, you'll be able to see the rules. But more importantly, there's a logs tab. If you click on that, it'll have a link displayed that takes you over to the Logs Explorer. And it also pre-populates the Logs Explorer search rule with a rule that pulls back the logs for the Cloud Armor and the load balancer itself. So if one of the Cloud Armor rules is what triggered the 403 block that we saw in the demo, we should be able to see a corresponding log record here with that. So once the Logs Explorer loads, you'll be able to see the different hits or requests that came into the site. If we take a look at the first one, since they're sorted chronologically, you'll notice that the IP address here should be your IP that you're testing this from. If it's not, you can just create a filter. All you have to do is click on that value and say show matching entries, and then you'll notice that the rule set is updated up here at the top, and now there's less log records for you to have to pick through. So in this case, this IP is the IP address of the VPN that I'm using, and whenever I set up the VPN, I could see that. That's how I know it's my IP, at least at this moment. Next, you'll want to click on the Enforced Security Policy section. There's a small triangle here to open that up. And once you get that opened up, you want to go down to the Pre-configured Expressions section and open that up. And of course, you can automate this through gcloud if you wanted to, or just save this query in your Logs Explorer for next time around. But what's important here is under the pre-configured expression IDs is the exact OWASP rule that was triggered when the block occurred. And you can see it's ID 942.421. So we want to copy this value. We're going to go over to our Cloud Armor policy and we're going to modify the policy to exclude this particular rule. So we're not going to turn off the Cloud Armor. We're not going to turn off even the rule set. We want the rules that are protecting the site as much as possible. We just want to disable only the very specific rule inside of the rule set that's inside of the policy that's causing issues for our particular site. So we're going to go back over to the site and we'll open up our Cloud Armor policy, in this case implemented in Terraform. I have an example already pulled up here of how to mechanically put the exceptions in. So in your rule set, it actually takes a second argument, which is an array of strings, an array of the names of the rules that you want to exclude but otherwise allow the rest of the rules in the rule set to protect the site. So in this example here, say protocol attack version 3.3 stable, we don't have any exceptions at all. We only pass in the name of the rule set that we want to implement. But in the case of the SQL injection version 3.3 stable, we actually have a rule whose ID is 942.330 excluded by placing it inside the square brackets, which means array. So we're going to add a second element to this array, which is the rule that we just saw in the log causing problems. So I'm just going to paste the name of that rule. It's the rule that we copied from the Logs Explorer. I'll save this file, and then we'll go ahead and we'll implement the change by doing a Terraform apply. Now we have to give Terraform a minute to roll out the new Cloud Armor policy to the load balancer. And then you may have to give the load balancer anywhere from 1 to 10 minutes to implement that policy in the various load balancers in front of your site. And the more load balancers you have, so like the more regions, the more data centers or zones that you have the load balancers deployed to, potentially the longer it might take the policy to make it out to be distributed out to all the different load balancers around the world. In this demo here, we're only using a load balancer in a single region, so hopefully it'll deploy fairly quickly. So the Terraform is done, meaning that now the Cloud Armor policy has this second exception in it. We already had the first exception we were using as the demo, and now we have the second one that we got out of the Logs Explorer logs. So we're going to go back over and continue testing, continue looking at the logs, identifying iteratively the rules within the rule sets that are causing issues and just excluding specifically those rules. So we'll go ahead and reload the page here, and we're still getting blocked as far as we can tell. And if we go back over to the Logs Explorer, we should be able to see if it's the same rule that we already saw or if it's a new rule. If it's the same rule, then the Terraform update just hasn't propagated to all the load balancers yet, and we just have to give it more time. If it's a new rule, then we add that rule to the exclusion and continue iterating through the process. So let's go see what's going on over here. And we're going to run the Log Explorer query again, and to refresh the records in Log Explorer. We now have more records, which is good. And the latest record is pretty close to the current time, close enough. We go back through and we click on the enforced security policy, and then we click on the pre-configured expression IDs like before, and we see that the rule that is registered is 942.421. We can copy that value, but I believe this is the same value we saw before. And so when we come back over here and we look at the Terraform, we can see 942.421. We've already excluded that. So what this is showing us is that even though we did the Terraform apply, the policy just hasn't propagated out to the load balancers yet. And in this case, that's neither a good or a bad thing. It just means we need to wait more time. And through the magic of video editing, I waited another 5 minutes and then refreshed the site, and the site has loaded successfully. So the Cloud Armor policy is deployed. Let's go look at the log record. We should see a new log record for this request that shows that I'm successfully connecting to the site. So we go back over to the logs. We're going to close the log we were looking at before. We're going to refresh the query over here. So you can click on the Run Query button, and it causes the query to run again. And now we see a lot of blue information icons or info icons on the screen here, and we'll just pick one of them. And what we should see is that our IP address actually has an enforced security policy, but now it's an allow, so we're not getting denied anymore, and the outcome was to accept. So hopefully this video helps show you how to easily and iteratively diagnose which of the Cloud Armor rules within the OWASP core rule set 3.3 is causing trouble, and just very strategically pick out those exact rules, allow those rules through, but otherwise keep the protection offered by the rule sets in general. That way you don't need to turn off Cloud Armor, you don't need to turn off the rule sets, and just very methodically find the particular rule or rules that are causing problems. Exclude those, and you should be up and running in no time.